So I'm here with Matthew Polanzani, and this is The Girl of the Golden Men. Hi, Matthew. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Violet?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Great.
So, first off, Idomeneo is your favorite Mozart opera. You're so wonderful. And you said that you connect with him especially well because of your shared fatherhood. How do you connect with characters you have less in common with, like the Duke and Nicoletto or Ernesto in Don Pasquale?
Well, a lot of that comes down to imagination. And of course, when you do your homework regarding a character's background and where they came from and how other characters relate to them, it gives you clues as to how you think that the person I'm playing anyway should behave. So, in the case of somebody like the Duke, I mean, I don't think of him as only a cad. I don't think of him as only a womanizer. That's really the side of him we get to see the most of. But I do like to try and put my claws into the top of the second act aria, Parmi vedere le lagrime, because in this is a moment where like he acknowledges that the possibility of love exists and that that it might even happen for him. Yeah, that it's short-lived, obviously, but I mean, I would like to think to myself that at some point, maybe as he gets older or whatever, maybe he'll find somebody who really turns the key to his heart, so to speak, and gets him going. I mean, really, in the end, a lot of it just comes from thinking about or wondering about or imagining how somebody might react in a situation when something is said to them, knowing if having a situational awareness of where you are and what's being said to you and who's saying it to you. And of course, the director also helps with that sort of thing. When you have somebody really great talking to you about what they know about the character's background or what they've imagined for themselves to give you ideas of windows and doors into a different ideas of character. It's kind of, I don't know, like you learn a lot every time you do it. So I don't know, there's each time hopefully you get a little something new, a little deeper insight into character.
Werther is your favorite role to sing. Why is he special to you?
Well, it's funny, a big part of it has to do with the music, which somehow to me is it touches my heart in a different way than other things. I also have dearly loved Nemorino in my career, and Una Fortiva Lagrima is a great aria. It's a touchstone aria and a tenor showpiece, and et cetera, et cetera. But there are things in Nemorino that, like, yeah, well, if I never sang it again, it wouldn't change much for me. There's virtually not a single note in Werther that I would say to myself, well, if I never sang that again, I wouldn't care. I mean, like, all his music is, I mean, it touches something in me deeper than other things. And beyond that, I do love, I mean, I love this guy for the purity of his love for Charlotte and how divided he is against himself, against Albert, against her in some ways. How he has multiple things pulling at him, but he's got this deep, dark, true desire for Charlotte that he can't figure out how to overcome. And I love him for that purity. I love him for his, I mean, humanity. We all have divisions inside of ourselves. We think differently about things, or we'll have an experience, we'll think one way, and then a little bit later we'll think another way. And like, he really fights all these things to a point where, like, he just realizes he can't keep fighting, and which is a terrible sadness, actually, and no human should ever find themselves in those shoes. But for me, it starts with the music, And second, like I say, like this purity of his heart is really, it's something that I relate deeply to.
That's beautiful. I think you're a wonderful Verter, and I hope that you bring it to the Met soon.
Oh
We're so
man, me
excited.
too. Me too. I would love to.
You just finished a run of Tosca at the Met as Cavaradossi. You only debuted that role last June. What's your journey been with the character?
Well, it's a short journey, obviously, since I've only sung it twice, but I do think I've gotten a pretty good clue about who the guy is. And it's funny because the first time I ever saw it was in the fall of 90, I think it was 91 or 92, and it was Pavarotti singing. It was my first time going to the Met. And I mean, it was it was incredible, obviously. I mean, like this is, I mean, if it's not the greatest voice of the last 100 years, it's got to be in the top couple, you know. I mean, it's just, and for me, one of the great tenors of all time and one of the great techniques of all time. Um, and I'm perfectly aware, by the way, that there's lots of people with different opinions about that, and I always say, hey, man, love what you love, and that's cool by me. But so one of the things though that I really discovered in these couple of runs I've gotten to do, I've really gotten to understand like the duality of Mario Cavaradossi. Something that I didn't really understand about him was his secretive nature, his spy nature, the nature of somebody who has hidden people before and has a place in the well of his at the well of his home where people can be hidden safely without being found. This is a guy who has clearly done this sort of thing before. He was an intelligent guy who lived a very dangerous life. Something like La vita mi costase. This, it's a big moment in the, you know, where he's just denounced Scarpia. And he says, if it costs me my life, I will make sure you're saved, you know. And it's an important moment because here he is, he's not just saying it to Angelotti, he's saying it out loud. And now the audience understands that this is a guy who's a man of action. This is a guy who's driven by something bigger and deeper. And I really enjoyed chewing up the duality of his persona.
Made me cry so much after Eluchevan.
No, yeah.
Actually, I started crying when you hugged Lyudmila. It was just,
Yeah,
it was a
yeah,
puddle.
yeah. I mean, well, Puccini can do this. I'm telling you, if Puccini was alive now, John Williams would have a major league competitor. You know, I mean, he writes very cinematically. You know, and Puccini detractors often say, well, he's too obvious. He's obviously just plucking heartstrings, and he's, you know, it's so over the top. And man, but that's what I love about it. And again, like I say, for people who don't like it, hey, that's totally cool by me. Love what you love, and I'm down. But you know, one of the things I love about that music is that he cleaves right to the center of the heart, and he knew how to write with a surgeon's precision, you know, to make sure you felt everything of the moment. Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of that music. I really love it.
That's fantastic. I love it so much.
Hmm.
You said that you like to stay true to the composer's original vision. Does that ever clash with some conductors or directors' different interpretations? How do you deal with that?
Most of the time we're doing things that were written by people who are long dead. So all we have to give us clues into what the composer thought of is what the things that they wrote in the score. So it has happened. I mean, like I made mention in a different talking about this piece, Tosca, for example. I mean, like the opening line of Recondita Armonia is written piano. I never ever heard one tenor deliver it piano. But but after that, I tried hard to hew to the things he wrote. And of course, on occasion, I've had directors who have asked me to deliver things the utter opposite of what I was actually saying. And that's always tough. There are times when I could sing things a little differently because I feel different, but when you've upended the actual meaning of the words to so that, like you're saying, I love you, but I love you with as much heavy sarcasm and ire and anger that you can muster, like that stuff is hard. And it's happened to me a couple times over the years, and like one time in particular where I was probably as close as I've ever been to canceling a job because I just didn't think I could pull off the vision of the director. So I always try as hard as I can to argue for the stuff that I think I absolutely have to have, and to try and give them as much as they're asking for in order to help them realize a vision, for a production, or for for their feeling about the piece as a generality.
Do you listen to yourself?
Yes. Not with a lot of pleasure. But it's funny because, like I have said this before too, like I am able to hear things that I do and understand that there are things I do well. I mean, I wouldn't have the career for as long as I've had it at the level I've had it if I wasn't doing things correctly, but of course, we as artists are always prone to hear the stuff that we don't like, or hear the things we're working on, and dissect why something worked or why something didn't work. And it's like I say about reviews, like if you get 49 reviews that say you sound like Caruso Incarnate, and one review that says you sound like a dying pig, you'll only remember the one that talks negatively about you. You won't remember the other 49 who absolutely are in love with you. And the same goes for my singing. Like, I might be able to give myself a pass for 10% of what I hear, but the other 90%, I'm like, geez, like I need to work on this stuff. And certainly also when you reach a certain point in your career, people stop talking to you about the stuff that you're doing wrong for fear that they might anger you, or that they might push a button that shouldn't have been pushed. And so, but I usually say, especially to the people who I trust, please tell me the things you hear. If something jumps out, I need to know about it, because if I'm doing it, then I don't know that there's something.
You often bring cookies to performances, I hear.
Yeah.
And you recently contributed your mom's chili recipe to the cookbook, The Opera Cooks. What do you typically eat on the morning of a performance?
Usually I like to have a piece of fruit and like a granola bar or a bowl of cereal or something like that. I usually don't eat a huge breakfast. I mean, yeah, something like that. I'll try and have on show days, I'll try and have a bigger meal at lunch, so that all I'll have before I sing maybe would be something small, like a small little sandwich or something like that. Nothing big, because I never want to feel full while I'm singing. And so usually if curtain comes at 7 o'clock, say, then I'll try and eat whatever I'm going to eat before at like 5. On show days, for sure, I definitely try to have the bigger meal in the middle of the day.
And you've been very patient with your career and your voice. Let your voice evolve naturally towards the heavier roles instead of pushing it too early. Have you always been this patient? And does it have anything to do with being a Chicago Cubs fan?
What a great question. Well, okay, so all right, so yes, I've always been careful about the roles I took. And that has started from the very beginning of my career. I would say it was less about being patient and more about being careful. Because throughout the whole course of my career, I've always tried at least one time a season to have one piece at least that was outside of my regular Mozart core. I worked hard to make sure that that I had one thing that caused me to step outside of my comfort zone, so that when I came back to it, I would have a new experience. I would have, and I think it helps. I believe it helped my voice remain flexible. Now, regarding the Cubs, I mean, thank God. I unfortunately I was in Munich when they won the whole thing in 2016. So that was that was kind of a bummer. And even I remember like on the opening, on the clinching, on the day they won it, I had a show that day, but I'd stayed up to watch, and like I think I went to bed. I finally had to go to bed at like, I don't know, 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and the game was still going on, and I just said I just have to go to bed. Like I've got to at least partially honor my commitment to the theater because I had a show that night. Yeah, I mean, like being a Cubs fan definitely requires patience. And I think they're kind of interesting this year, actually. They played a very tough schedule to start the season, and they're playing pretty well. And they basically have been they basically are they're a little over 500, and they've been playing some really tough opponents. So I'm hopeful for the Cubs this year, and I hadn't actually had a feeling of, I didn't think they were going anywhere. I thought maybe they were still another year or two away, but it's clear that they're advancing. So I'm psyched about that.
Must be even harder than being a Red Sox fan.
I mean, I was never a Red Sox fan, but I have to say, as a transplanted New Yorker, I mean, in other words, like, I'm a Chicagoan by birth, and like, if the Cubs met the Yankees in the World Series, there'd be some strife in my house, because all my family is really, they're all Yankees fans. But anyways, I mean, I do root for the Yankees while I live here, and except for if the Cubs or the White Sox are in town. But I don't have that same anger and ire towards the Red Sox fans. Like, that's kind of, for me, that's reserved for the Cardinals.
What are some of your happiest memories as a performer?
Oh, wow. Um, Another good question. I mean, there's certainly been times, for instance, every time I have sung Werther, I've been sad that it was over. Singing that part has really fulfills me in a way that the only other one that gets kind of close to it is Damnation of Faust by Berlioz. I also feel deeply that music for some reason. Those two things touch me in a deeper way. I mean, but I've had such great, I have a lot of great memories of, I mean, doing that new production of Magic Flute, the Julie Taymor one, back in 2004. And how, I mean, I have to say, it was a very satisfying thing for me to go back to it last season, nearly 20 years later, and think, wow, I can still sing this music. I'm still good at this, which was very satisfying for me, because it was, 19 years, almost 20 years later, 19 years later, 18 years later. I mean, some of my happiest things, thinking about some of the singers from previous generations that I've gotten to sing with, people like Edita Gruberova and Jim Morris and Sam Raimi and Robert Lloyd and Tom Allen. Boy, I mean, I know I'm going to forget people, but like, having had a chance to sing with that generation of singers, Kiri Takanawa, another one, who I didn't get to do anything big with her, but I loved sharing the stage with her just to say I got to do it. Or Frederica von Stade, I mean, like, people like this, I'm so grateful that I got to be around them, even if they weren't at the very top of whatever powers they had. And that wasn't true of all of them, because both Sam and Jim in particular, and Tom Allen, frankly, they were towards the end of their careers, but still very much at the top. And Gruberova, like I was just mentioning about how satisfying it was for me to go back to Magic Flute after all those years. I sang Lucia with her in Vienna. It was her last staged Lucia performances. And the production we did was made new for her like 30 years earlier. And she was still kicking its butt. I mean, she was singing so great. That was a very big joy for me, actually. I mean, like, having had these opportunities to be near these people and be around them and watch them work and watch them sing and understand that, like, they still take it seriously. These things always brought me joy every time around. Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of great experiences and working with great singers and great conductors and great productions. Um, but I still always say, like I've never done anything in my career that got close to being a dad. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a pretty private guy, and one of the reasons why we had trouble finding time is because when I'm home, it's hard for me to give up any time here. Like I hate to spend a moment doing anything that's not with my wife or not with my kids if I can help it. So like that's a very important part of my life, and more important really than the job I do. So yeah, so everything gets tempered when you look through the parental glass, so to speak. But yeah, I've had a lot of great memories over all the years, and so I thought of some specific things, I suppose, but I've had a lot of good joy in my career over all these years.
You don't like rock and roll? I know you were a big rock and roll guy before you found opera.
I definitely still like rock and roll. It's on in the car most all the time. I'm a fan, especially of the rock and roll from the 60s and 70s, also of the 80s. Um, Less so of the 90s. Somehow that era of music didn't touch me the same way. But I'm also a fan of today's music too. I mean, and I enjoy Coldplay. I mean, this is a band I really like, and I've enjoyed every one of their albums. Um, but like if I was, I mean, if I'm listening to rock, I'm definitely more of the Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Van Morrison, um, the Doors kind of era music, and into the 80s with things like the Police, and U2. I mean, U2 is also one of my absolute favorite bands, and I own all of their albums, and I listen to all of them with huge pleasure. And so I mean, like I mean, I like a lot of different styles of music. Um, but yeah, rock and roll is probably the thing that owns my heart the most.
So, what advice would you give to aspiring singers who are too young to start formal training?
Yeah. So my advice would be to listen to the singers for whom 95% of what they had to give on the stage was vocal acting. And that style of singing, that style of vocal production, is different from what we have today. And like I say, I do think there's great singing going on today. I have many colleagues whose singing I really, really revere. And I mean, I'm not going to start listing them because I'll certainly forget people. But I mean, like, and I don't want to offend anybody, but there are many who I love. So number one, I would say, listen to the oldsters, the guys who recorded things in 40s, 50s, 60s. That singing is the singing that I have tried my hardest to emulate. Second thing, of course, would be to go as often as you can to the theater and see it, watch it, um, dissect it for yourself, look for ways to understand what's happening on stage and how it might relate to you as a singer. Don't be in such a rush to make, Anya Netrebko sound, or Dmitry Vorostovsky sound, or Bryn Tervel sound, or Nadine Sierra sound, or Eileen Perez's sound, or Elena Garancha's sound, or whoever you might revere today. Don't be in such a rush to make that noise. Instead, try to treat your voice as well as you can, without asking too much of it, while you're too young to really appreciate and understand what the technique of singing really is. And the last thing I would say is, learn how to like what you do. Learn how to like your singing. It's a huge tool to be able to listen to yourself and judge for yourself about the things that you did well, and also critique yourself for the stuff that needs work.
Why is the Met special to you?
The Met is special to me because if it's not the greatest opera house in the world, it could only be in the top one or two. It's just a place where art is being made at virtually the highest level possible. And having had such a long association, 25-year association with that company, um, it's an immense source of pride, really. Um, I love the people there. I've made a lot of great friends over all my years of singing there. I'm aware that when I'm step into a rehearsal or when I step onto the stage, that the people I'm stepping onto the stage with or into the rehearsal with are going to be A+ musicians and people who are at the top of their craft and people who I hope I'm going to learn from and who might learn something from me. Um, I love being associated with a theater that's as important as this one, and having such a deep and long lasting relationship with this company has meant a lot to me. Um, and I have enjoyed virtually everything I've ever done here. I mean, and really this place has offered me the possibility to sing with virtually everybody in my career. I mean, from like Renee Fleming and Debbie Voigt and Susie Graham and um, Suzanne Menser and Ben Hepner and Sam Morris and Sam Raimi and Jim Morris and Dmitry Vostovsky and on down the line are like people like Artur Rashinsky or Nadine Sierra, or Eileen Perez or Elena Garancha again, I'm leaving people out, but I mean, like, these names I'm naming are they're not just people, they're the best people, and they've all come through here. And I've sung with them all here, and I mean, really, I feel very lucky and blessed to have had the career I've had in this theater that's so important to arts organizations across America and even across the world. So yeah, I have a very deep affection for this opera house, and I hope I mean I don't imagine I have 25 more years in me, but I do hope that my relationship with the theater doesn't end for a long time.
What can we do to keep opera thriving for the next generation, like your boys?
Yeah, well, I think it's really imperative that we introduce opera to them all through elementary and junior high and high school. We have to expose them to this art form, which incorporates all of our artistic ventures. Really, it incorporates music, obviously. It incorporates theater. It incorporates art. It incorporates dance. A lot of themes of operas are still relevant stories today, and obviously tyrannical authoritarian types like Scarpia still exist today. Love still exists today. Hatred still exists today. And these things are all things that opera deals with. The group of people that understand opera in a deeper level are the people who are more than 40 or 50 years or 60 years old. These people, opera still occupied a big part of our entertainment industry focus. I don't know where the disconnect happened, where we just decided that opera was no longer an interesting thing to study, or an interesting thing to be a part of, or an interesting thing to understand. But we need to bring that back, because we need a generation of listeners and watchers who get why opera is difficult, who get why opera is interesting, who get why this music is still important, why these themes are still important. And the only way to do it is to teach them. Everything gets a lot drier without music. And so I think studying music is still an important thing, and we need to prioritize it more.
How do you balance life as a dad with being an opera singer, since you're frequently away from home singing?
Oh man, it's so hard. I mean, I try hard to make sure that when I'm here, that I'm really here. I try hard to make sure that I'm aware of everything the kids are doing, and making sure that I understand that, oh, this one's got a baseball game, this one's got a swim meet, this one's got a piano recital, this one has a basketball game. Like, I try to go to all these things, even if it means kind of overextending myself a little bit, to make sure that I'm soaking up all that stuff. And you're only a couple of years from college yourself. I mean, you're not far from it, and like, I mean, once you leave. I left, your parents left, your cousins, I mean, all our friends, their children. That's like life cycle. That's what this is. This is how it goes. You grow up, and I'm not saying that you won't love your parents anymore, anything like that. Nothing of the kind. What I am saying is that you're going to go out and do your own thing, and you're going to become the woman you're going to becoming, and you're going to have a life, and you're going to have interests, and you're going to have to figure out how to balance it too. So for me, what it means for me is to, if it means I only come home for a couple days sometimes, just rather than, it would be so much simpler just to go from Vienna to Napoli when I have 3 days, and just do that and spend a couple of days relaxing. Or I could go home, and for me, like, some singers look at me like I'm crazy, but like, if I have a 5 day break in Europe, chances are good that I'm going home. And even though it's kind of expensive, I just spend the money so I can have the family time. Because for me, like, if I'm out of the house 6, 7, 8 months a year, I mean, boy, I miss a lot. I miss a lot. And I know I'm missing a lot, and my children understand it. My wife understands it. They get why I do what we do, because why I do what I do, because it allows us to live where we live and have the things we have. But unless I honor that absence when I am home by trying to make sure that I do as much with them as I can, um, like, if I'm an absentee dad while I'm here at home, that's a real problem. So I try to make sure that I do all those things, and be as much a part of their lives while I'm home as I can.
And from your performance of Danny Boy Met's at home gala, it's pretty clear that your family are mega fans. That was so sweet. Do your
Well,
boys come to your performances?
they do. They came to see Tosca. I didn't bring them to Don Carlo because it was long. The oldest one could have managed it. I didn't know how the other two would do. Um, but like, they came to Medea in the fall. They've seen me do lots of things. Also, there was a moment, I can't remember if it was, I can't remember if it was the Met production or if it was one they saw on a live stream of Elixir, when I had to slap Adina on the butt. Oh man, I heard about that from my boys so hard. Daddy, what are you thinking of? How could you hit her? I'm like, so part of me is like, all right, I'm teaching them well. They understand that kind of thing is not correct, and a behavior that shouldn't be repeated anywhere in the world under any circumstances. But on the other hand, of course, I had to laugh because, of course, they don't know that she's got like 3 skirts on, and the odds of her having actually felt my hand were small. I mean, like, but they don't understand that, and that's okay. Yeah, but I do bring them, and I want them to be educated about opera. I hope that they fall in love with it. I hope that they, even when I stop singing, I hope they'll decide to go and show their families what this art form has meant to me, and what it has meant to them growing up, and the things they've got to see. I mean, really, Violet, the simple truth of it is, there's no way that my children would have ever gone to Naples, or to Torino, or to Frankfurt, or to Paris, or to London, or to Barcelona, or any of the places I brought them all over Europe, if I wasn't doing what I do. So I'm aware that this is given back to them also. But yeah, I wouldn't qualify them exactly as super fans. They do love me, so that helps. But that moment that happened on the Met Gala was really spontaneous and completely caught me off guard. I knew they were watching up here. Like, I'm upstairs now. I'm not downstairs by the piano, and I knew they were watching, because they'd been watching just to see, and then I knew we knew they had to be quiet and that they couldn't be running around like while I was singing on the at home gala. Um, but when they started, well, I mean, I think I don't know if I've ever actually watched it on video, or if maybe it even exists on video. I mean, I would love to know what my face looked like when that happened, because they totally caught me off guard. And I will sleep in peace, until you come Thank you so much. I'm so. My family sitting upstairs listening.